you're not wanting to answer, which is whether boys can become girls.
Yeah, I think I'm for the grace of God. Yeah.
What does that mean? Now, guys, we're going to watch another video that's going viral, this time featuring Ben Shapiro, who is, of course, the conservative commentator and the Daily Wire host, and a conversation/debate of sorts that he had with California Governor Gavin Newsom on Gavin Newsom's podcast, which he, honestly, to his credit, has continued to have more right-wing individuals on for conversations. He, of course, actually had Charlie Kirk on before Charlie passed and was killed tragically. And it's never made a ton of sense to me as a matter of political strategy, kind of having friendly dialogues with these very right-wing figures when you're about to run for president and you need to make the Democratic primary base happy, has never really added up to me because they don't like that. They don't like when you talk to conservatives or Republicans and platform them and humanize them. I think it's great, though, personally, fostering constructive, healthy, respectful dialogue between, a prominent progressive like Gavin Newsom and prominent conservatives. So, on my personal scorecard, I give him props for doing it, especially because it very often doesn't go well for him. And that's what happened when Ben was on, and the issue inevitably, because of everything that's happening, both in the news, but also with Gavin Newsom's history and record in the state of California, where he pushed really insane and supported really insane gender policies, the issue of transgender issues inevitably came up, and transgender kids. So here's that portion of their conversation that's going viral. Let's take a look.
The fundamental question that lies at the root of all of this is the question that you're not wanting to answer, which is whether boys can become girls.
Yeah, I think I'm for the grace of God. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the sympathy. I also feel terrible for anybody who's suffering with any sort of.
I mean, I think it's been the case for
terrible,
generations, for time immemorial. God bless. I don't know how.
That's a hard one. I just don't understand
because I don't know why it's such a. Why is it such a? I'm curious.
So Ben asked him a question: can boys become girls? Right. It's a pretty straightforward question, and the Democratic Party's answer is yes. Right, because they have pushed self-ID policies in places like California that say not only can boys become girls, boys can become theys simply through self-declaration. You don't even need a medical process or a diagnosis of gender dysphoria or any of these things actually in these states. That's how far they went. And even federal legislation like the Equality Act that almost every elected Democrat supports would redefine the term sex under federal law to be whatever you feel like. So the position at the actual institutional and underlying level is a yes to this. And most people don't believe that. Most people, even if they're okay with people, as I am, who have gender dysphoria, true trans people, living like they are the other sex or the other gender, because that's what will make them happiest, most of us don't actually believe you can change your gender because we still believe gender is tied to biology. So it puts them in this weird position where they seem scared to answer the question, even though they do have an answer, but they also know the truth that their answer actually isn't true, but they can't say that. And so they just kind of say nothing at all. What did Gavin even say here? He's asked a straightforward question. He goes, by the grace of God. What does that mean? You just can't or won't answer the question, and you just say, throw your hands up and say, I don't know, man. Who knows? Leave it up to God. Okay, well, you're the governor of the biggest state economy in the country, and you want to be president, and somebody's asking you a straightforward question about biological and social realities. You probably should be able to answer and not just throw your hands up in the air. Call me crazy, but this kind of thing is not going to play well with voters. You look at Kamala Harris, her crazy past positions on this, like free taxpayer-funded trans surgeries for illegal immigrants, that came back to haunt her in the election. The Kamala is for they, them ad ended up being one of Trump's most successful ads. I could see this getting spliced into an ad, and we've only just begun the clip. Keep rolling.
I'm curious. I understand the political potency of it.
It's not just politically potent.
But it's just how it's so few. We're talking
Because
about so few people.
It's not about the
that are struggling with gender identity issues. A lot of remarkable people, a lot of wildly successful people, and they've gone on their life, have incredible lives. I don't know. There's so much hate and bigotry, so much condemnation, so much judgment.
This is the part where I start to object.
Yeah.
Okay, the idea that
you may not be spewing it.
No,
like some others. Trust me.
But
this is the business they're in.
There are lots of terrible people who say lots of terrible things, but
yes.
It is not an act of bigotry to say that a boy cannot become a girl, nor should my children be taught in K through 12 public schools that a boy can become a girl.
Yeah.
That is not an act of bigotry. That's an act of rationality and biological simplicity.
So I do agree with Ben here, but I think the difference is Gavin is not entirely wrong that the way that some conservative personalities, including people like Matt Walsh, who obviously Ben Shapiro employs at the company he co-founded or founded, the Daily Wire, speak about trans people in a way that doesn't just point out facts and reality, but does come off as hateful and nasty. Like Matt went on this infamous rant about how Dylan Mulvaney is like a subhuman alien filth. It's obviously coming from a place of hatred too, in some way. So it's true. What Ben said here is true. But there is a subset of people that holding any of those beliefs is not inherently hateful or bigoted. But there is a subset of people who hold those beliefs, who also talk about them in a way that does come across as hateful and bigoted and cruel sometimes, online in particular. And I think people from the perspective that Ben is coming from would, I mean, they already are convincing most people, but their message would reach broader and perhaps convince more empathetic, liberal-leaning people if they distance themselves more effectively and more fully from the people who are coming from a place of hate. That's my take, at least.
Biological simplicity.
I respect your point of view, and
but does the state?
Good people disagree on this.
I know, but
and a lot of states, not just California, well-established rules, by the way, that predate me. Again, this is not where I started. We're campaigning and advocating on these issues, as some suggest. And look, I'm with the Governor Spencer Cox, who said about many of these issues, never so much attention been placed on so few people.
The problem is, I do think that on an electoral level, to go to the politics, it is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. When
I
you
agree
say,
with that.
When
I
you
agree
say
with
a boy
that.
can become a girl,
Yeah.
and then just
I
on,
do
on,
agree
a,
with
on a
that.
realistic.
And by the way, and I respect if that's your barrier to then listening to people on a myriad of other issues. So be it. It is what it is.
I just find it strange that even if you wish to have a public policy that pursues something different, we cannot just admit that boys and girls are two different things and that a boy cannot become a girl. Why is this so difficult?
Yeah, I understand your point of view, and and I also respect Caitlyn Jenner. I do.
There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, so the problem is Gavin Newsom is trying to do this straddling of the fence that's just going to make no one happy. The progressive activists are going to attack him for even platforming or entertaining Ben Shapiro, or saying that he can respect his view, even though he doesn't share it. But then he's not actually articulating his own view very well or at all. He's kind of dodging. So it's not like he's reclaiming the ground and saying, yeah, I can say what a woman is and why a trans woman is a woman, and here's why, let me explain it, and kind of staking out a defensible position that he could potentially convince the masses of. He is not taking a position, but offering respect and a platform to the right-wing position, or honestly, it's not really a right-wing position, but you get what I'm saying. The position that will be more represented by Republicans, at least in the immediate political future. But then, so he's going to piss off the left flank for even entertaining or offering respect to that position, but he's not agreeing with the conservatives, so he's not going to win fans there. But he's also not even answering it's like he's only going to piss everyone off with this. So it's a baffling thing to see. I don't know what kind of triangulation he's going for here. But whatever he's attempting, it really didn't work. This whole podcast makes no sense to me. Where he's the governor of California, he's got a progressive record, but he is going to run for president in 2020. He needs to win a Democratic primary. Guys, remember, primaries are how a party selects their nominee, and in each case, barely anyone votes in the primaries. So only the most extreme Republicans, typically speaking, I'm generalizing, not always, but the pool of Republican voters that votes in the primary is more extreme than the average Republican voter. The same is true on the Democratic side. The Democratic primary voter is much to the left of the average Democratic general election voter. So picking the nominees, you have this very right-wing group of Republican voters and this very left-wing group of primary voters. He's about to run in a primary where he has to appease those lefties. And now, were he to get the nomination, and then once you have the nomination, there's no takesy-backsies, it would then make sense for Gavin Newsom to try to pivot to the middle or moderate his image or what have you. But it doesn't really make sense to do it now because you're just going to alienate those lefties that you win, that you need to get the nomination. And then you're not actually going to win friends on the right or get Republicans to support you. They really can't anyway in a Democratic primary in a lot of states. So the whole thing makes no sense. It's kind of a muddled mess. And it's, again, comes back to one of my perennial problems with Gavin Newsom is that no one really knows who the hell he is or what he actually believes. But I guess in politics, that can also be an asset sometimes. So I don't know. You guys let me know. I thought it was interesting to see Ben Shapiro and Gavin Newsom in the same room having a conversation, a tough conversation about the issues of the day. And I do think we need more of that kind of thing in the country, but I can't say that it went particularly well for Gavin Newsom. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, yada, yada, yada. And that'll be it for today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk again real soon.